Okay, great. Guys, thank you again for all the prayers and what you guys have done for my son. Thank God we've had good news. We've had the medicine's working, although we do have a year to go, and this is just the beginning. But so far so good. And I definitely see his attitude is changing, and I'm very grateful again everybody for their kindness and tremendous prayers and tremendous. I honestly, I'm very blessed to have an army behind me of so many people that are caring and giving back. It's beautiful. I mean, this is exactly how we fight what the opposite of what's happening in the world, all the conflict, all the strife. And if we could just have a group of people united and all, we want the best for each other, I think that can make a tremendous difference in the world. So tonight's class, I decided just to take a little bit of a break from the regular class. And I want to talk about maybe 15 to 20 books that I strongly recommend everybody. And I also will do a Q&A right after. Right now, between you and me, one of the biggest escapes I have today is opening up a glass of wine and reading a book, because I've seen you can't even turn on your phone anymore. You can't turn on the news anymore. It's a disaster. I mean, you can't even, not even 5 minutes to even scroll, to even watch an NBA game. You hear this matters and that matters. It's so much. It's so much that I said, you know what? The more I'm realizing how you can put on the phone for 5 minutes, you just get completely nauseous of what's happening in the world. So I said, I'm telling you, one of the biggest escapes I have is opening up a glass of wine and reading a book. And it does unbelievable things for your mind. It clears your mind. And also at the same time, you're able to learn and you're able to apply. To the extent of the knowledge that we have is the extent of, obviously, our prayers become better. The way we deal with things become better. So it's very, very important to have new information. In order to have new thinking, you have to have new information. So again, I'm going to talk about 15 to 20 books, which some of them are must. And we're going to talk about different topics. After that, we'll do a Q&A, Bezrat Hashem. 2 minutes on Elul. If everybody has experience already dealing with 2020, is difficult as it is, imagine dealing with Elul and 2020. So you just, sometimes I feel like I'm just hanging on to, the mornings are great, and then the afternoons just become very, very tough. And I'm very, very tough-minded, but it's just, no matter who you are, it's just the afternoons have become brutal and tremendous, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of highs and lows. And, the advice in Elul is just to hang in there, either to run or return. Remember that concept. Just run and return. Don't get into the negativity. Just run and return. You're either running or you're returning. So don't get so, a person shouldn't also lose despair because he's getting all these ups and downs. I'm getting them and I'm teaching this stuff. Expect them. And this is the way it's going to be in Elul. And hopefully, this Hashem by Rosh Hashanah, we can't wait for something big to come to us, either Moshiach or something else. I don't know what it is, but I've never had a situation in my life where there's been this amount of darkness and some light does not come afterwards. So everybody should have hope, should have calmed down. There will be a light afterwards. It's always the same way. Light always comes after chaos. All right, so let's start. First, recommend, obviously, one of my favorite books called Dvorah. Everybody has to have this book. One of the segulas of this book is one of the rabbis said it's actually a cure for cancer, believe it or not. That a person practices, he can actually cure cancer by just reading it. It's one of the segulot. Obviously, I can't tell you to just don't do any medicine, just read it. But the power of the Dvorah is that in the same way that because what's the biggest issue today is obviously people holding in emotions, people holding in grudges, people holding in hate, people holding in things, blaming people. So what the Dvorah does is it tells you you're allowed to emulate. If somebody wrongs you or somebody harms you or somebody does something to you, basically you can use one of the 13 attributes of mercy, and instead of holding in a grudge and hating that person, all of a sudden you start showing that person mercy. And as you show mercy to them, what happens is a reciprocal effect in heaven that God sends you mercy. So again, everybody, specifically husband and wives, specifically in Elul, I can't recommend this book enough to everybody. and it's called Tomer Dvorah. And specifically, this book is by the author of the book is Rabbi Yitzhak Zilberstein. You could buy this book on Amazon. This is a must. Before you buy anything else, this is an absolute must. Tomer Dvorah. Number 2, The Garden of Emuna and the Garden of Gratitude. These books are by Rabbi Arush. Believe it or not, the Garden of Emuna and the Garden of Gratitude, it's like a muscle. Gratitude and faith is like a muscle. If you work it, it works for you. If you don't work it, it just all of a sudden you can believe in the concept of gratitude. You can believe in the concept of faith. But if you don't work it, it's just going to, little by little, you're just going to get caught up in negativity. So Garden of Gratitude and Garden of Emuna, I try to review them once a month just to get my perspective off, because sometimes our perspective is just completely, we lose our perspective so quickly. Garden of Emuna and Garden of Gratitude, before Rosh Hashanah, at least read the Garden of Gratitude, because it's going to teach you, you're going to go in there on Rosh Hashanah praising your Creator, where the rest of the world is going to say, just get me out of this mess. Imagine going into Rosh Hashanah, instead of asking Hashem, get me out of this mess, get me out of this crappy year, get me out of this, you're going to say, Hashem, thank you for everything. You're the greatest. I can't wait to have another year. So obviously we have to act better than we feel. So Garden of Gratitude will tremendously change your perspective, and Rabbi Arush does a phenomenal job on how really what gratitude is about. And I've never seen such a simple yet effective book like the Garden of Gratitude and the Garden of Emuna. So that's the second one. These you could buy them in. I think he sold maybe 4 to 5 million copies of these books. Number 3. Again, I'm not exactly saying in particular order. We're just going with the pun. Phenomenal book by Mastering Relationships by Mordechai Weinberger. Mordechai Weinberger is an LCSW, and he does a phenomenal job at using the 4 elements and recognizing that if you know your other person's elements, you could deal with him completely differently. Like my son, he's an air sign. So air signs, if you tell them what to do, they do the opposite. But what air signs like is they like space. They don't like to be suffocated. So it teaches you literally to properly, whether it's our wives, whether it's our children, it teaches you and it gives you examples on how to properly speak to them. Obviously, a person who's very emotional, you have to speak to them completely different. Somebody who's very earth, you have to speak to them completely different. And it really tells you, and this is really a game changer, because once you know where your spouse is or you know where your kids are, you'll know how to change your strategy with them. You'll know how to speak to them completely different and much more effective. Instead of, for example, telling an air sign, do this, now. All they want to do is anytime you tell them something to do, they do the complete opposite. So you're going to get more frustrated, and then they're going to completely do the opposite. So what it teaches you is let you do what you need to do and let them watch you. They usually copy you. So that's just an example of an air sign. Water signs are very emotional, very driven, and it really teaches us based on the 4 elements, which is based on Kabbalah, which is based on the Rav Chaim Vital. It goes into details between parents, children, how to specifically deal with each one of them through the 4 elements. This is again called Mastering Relationships. A must. It will bring you peace between your husband and your wife, and it will bring you peace between you and your kids. Most important, you're going to change your whole strategy on how to deal with each individual. Phenomenal book by my buddy Benji Epstein called Living in the Present. Living in the Present. Such a phenomenal book, Living in the Present. I would tell you today, think about it logically. Either people are depressed or people are anxious. Bottom line. Nobody's very present today. And he takes a lot of books here from Rabbi Nachman. He takes a lot of stuff from Rav KOOK. And you have to understand something. People that want to hold on to the past is because they want to control. They don't want to let go. They just don't want to let go. That's the job of the ego. The ego's job is to not let go of anything. It likes to hold on. It just can't let go. And the future, the job of the ego is to control your outcome. So you can see how much pain the ego is causing. So what this book does, it teaches you to be present. And really, again, when I'm learning about being present, when I'm focusing about being present, when I'm reading about it, it does a tremendous. You'll see, you'll be much more happier. In his book, he also talks about that most people are not enjoying the process; they're just going after the prize. And he brings an example here from Adam and the sin of the tree. When the tree originally the tree and the fruit were supposed to be one, but what happens is because the fourth day of creation, the earth complained. So all of a sudden, the earth, the tree itself, the bark of the tree, and the fruit became a separate thing. What does that mean practically? Practically, it means that we're not enjoying the process. We only want the prize. So any time that we're literally trying to always get something to be happy, what are you doing? You're really chasing the fruit, and you're not enjoying the process. So this book is, again, my buddy Benji Epstein. It took him 4 years to read it. It's a phenomenal book on being present, because being present means happiness. Being present means everything. I can't be grateful if I'm not in the present. I can't be grateful if I'm anxious. I can't be grateful if I'm stuck on grief in the past. So this is a must read. And you know, it's another good strategy is if you tell your partner, oh, by the way, you need to work on being more present. Oh, by the way, you need to work on this. They're usually never going to listen to you. Somehow or another, our spouses usually never listen to us, because anything that comes from a spouse, oh, it's an attack. You're saying something is wrong with me. But if you say, you know, what a good book I read, I'm becoming so much better in that book. I love it. Try to look at, see if you like it. It's such a different approach when you actually tell somebody you suggest a book instead of telling, by the way, you know, you take things too personal, or you're always living in the past. It doesn't work. So usually I like recommendations instead of demanding or telling people what to do, because, you know, usually the way you do it, it usually doesn't work. Another phenomenal book. It's All in Your Mind. This is a book by Sara Yosef, the granddaughter of Rav Chaim Yosef. And she took a new age, secret, law of attraction in a Torah angle. Phenomenal book. It talks about visualization, talks about being creative, talks about how you can, she gives an amazing example, and she gives an example on how sometimes if you feel like your husband is not a provider and that he's never going to provide for you, what happens, you can actually send him like negative signs. You can have a bad image of him. And what happens is when you start speaking to you start disrespecting him, and you start not believing in him. But she tells you here, imagine like he's the greatest provider. Imagine he's the best husband in the world. It's a little bit of an azamra concept, but it really teaches, all Jewish sources, teaches us really how to change the way we look at somebody. And when you change the way you look at somebody, you can actually send them positive vibes. And this is book, again, it's All in Your Mind by Sara Yosef. I can't stress how good this book is. The next one, advice or a bit more advice. Either one. Advice or a bit more advice is basically Rabbi Nachman's book on topics. Basically, it takes maybe 20, 30 topics, and it'll give you like 3 or 4 lines on each topic. So it's not so long. So in case, let's say you have 5 minutes to study, 10 minutes to study. You don't have a lot of time to study. This is a phenomenal book that you could read something in 5 to 10 minutes, get something, and absorb it instead of, opening up the whole book. So the book is advice. This is one of the books that got me closer to Rabbi Nachman's teachings. Advice or a bit more advice. Give me 1 second. 1 second. Okay, next one. A New Light. This is a book by Rabbi Arush. You see my notes on the book. A New Light, the Garden of the Yearning and Will. What happens is anything spiritually, anything across the board, in order to get something that you want, you're going to have to yearn for it. Yearning is the biggest energy that we have, desire. It comes from the energy of Keter and Kabbalah. So it teaches us that whatever we want to do, whether it's you want to start forgiving somebody, or whether you want to have you want to start to talk to God, or whether you want to have, different things in your life. Usually anything good usually is carried by a tremendous amount of obstacles. So it teaches you that first, when a person is hit by obstacles, normally today, it's very common to get very frustrated when you get obstacles. You get frustrated, or we quit, or we blame it on somebody else. But Rabbi Arush is telling you it's all about yearning. And he takes the concept from the bread of shame, that anything you receive without paying for it and without earning it, it's called like the bread of shame. So whatever I get without earning it, it's going to lead me to shame. I'm not going to appreciate it as much. But when I yearn for something, when I pray for something, and I really desire and I get it, it's going to have a bracha. So that's why Rabbi the Ariel says that if you receive something and you didn't pray for it, it could be that the thing will go away from you. But if you prayed for something and you received it, that thing will stay with you. So it teaches us very simple that we always have to yearn. We always have to desire. Nothing is going to come easy to us. And this is something that involves so much mental strength, because at the end of the day, you could trying to do something 30 days, 40 days, 50 days. You keep on doing it, and your mind's telling you, like, why am I wasting my time? This is where the yearning happens. The yearning happens when you have to constantly push. I cannot tell you guys how much you have to push. If you want to get anything in life done, there's no shortage of desire and pushing. And this book will tell you on how to get to the next level of desire and how to get to the next level of yearning. Every time I open up the book, I get such inspiration. And I said, maybe I'm not pushing enough myself. And it really, really inspires me, that book. Phenomenal book. That is the garden of a new life, the garden of yearning and will. This is a must book called Wisdom, Rabbi Nachman's Wisdom. This book talks about, the first half of the book talks about Rabbi Nachman's life, what he had to do to get to Israel and his whole life. And the second half of the book talks about very short statements. I take a lot of classes from this book. And again, these are short. Nothing long. It's something that you can read. This is one of the struggles that I'm having trying to make my book. I don't know if I should have something really short, like one-liners, or something very profound. Do I do it for the whole world? Do I do it just for religious people? So I'm very confused on what is the best method on creating a book. Because at the end of the day, I recognize people don't have that much attention span today. People want to get something quickly, and they want to move on because we're so programmed to get everything quickly. So again, this book is phenomenal because it is quick. It's a book it's an easy read. The concepts are there. He'll talk about something for a paragraph. He'll talk something for a page, where your train of thought is there. It's not like you're thinking about 100 things. This is a must. If you're going to buy any book from BRI, Breslev Research Institute, it's called Wisdom. One of my favorite books by David Hawkins, Letting Go. This probably changed my life, this book. This book changed my life completely. And because letting go all talks about how all of our stress is internal, never external. And it's because we accumulate so much pressure because of all the things that are happening to us. And if we don't find a way to release it, to let it go, it becomes part of us. And all of a sudden we start walking around with moods, and we start around with bad mindsets and tired. And then when people speak to us, they trigger us and they make us upset, and we take things personal. And it really goes into how to elevate your consciousness, and that's all through letting go, which in the Hebrew word is called bitul. This book is a must. It's a must. As you see here, the pathway of surrender. It's all about surrendering your feelings. Because remember, thoughts don't create feelings. Feelings create thoughts. If I have a feeling of fear, then I'm going to have 5, 10 different thoughts that come into my head. But once I start letting go of the fear, or the feeling of the fear, all of a sudden the thoughts completely will be removed. I start removing the feelings. Because remember, when you think about something 100 times, it becomes a feeling or a belief, and then it gets stuck to you. So what you have to do is you have to start getting rid of the feelings. And once you start letting go of the feelings, the minds, all of a sudden, the thoughts go away. It's really, really phenomenal. This is a must book called Letting Go. David Lieberman, Never Get Angry Again. Again, love his stuff. Never Get Angry Again. And Free Will Works. These two books, Free Will Works and Never Get Angry Again. Never Get Angry Again speaks about, gives you like 20-something topics, and speaks about self-esteem, your connection between self-esteem and how you treat others, family conflicts, family relationships, and all David Lieberman's books are very like my classes. They're very strategy. It talks about strategy. It doesn't leave you 100 pages with just fluff. All his things basically have strategy. Either change your perspective, everything's strategy. Again, and he recognizes the reason why we get angry is it's because we have either low self-esteem or because people, again, accumulated pressure. But this is, again, a must book, Never Get Angry Again. How Free Will Works talks about all kinds of chapters about mindfulness. He talks about motivation. He talks about willpower. He talks about self-esteem, but it's all based on the Torah. It's a beautiful, beautiful book. These two books are by David Lieberman, and they're both talks about obviously free will. How much free will do we have? How much bitachon? How much effort should we put in business? What happens to you if you don't have faith? And he really, really goes into depth on how these things. These are two must: Free Will Works and Never Get Angry Again. That is again by David Lieberman. Another great book, this is by Tzvi Friedman, is Stay Within, Be Within, Stay Above. Okay? What happens is Stay Within, Stay Above is a great book because it's also, he takes maybe 150 pages by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he speaks about all kinds of different small topics, but he'll bring a lecture from Lubavitcher Rebbe, and then he'll bring it out to you. Again, beautiful, beautiful book. Also short. All of these books are easy reads. They're not books they're heavy. Books that you could really, really read, etc. The next one I really, really love is Seek Peace and Pursue It: Strategies for Peace. This is also by David Lieberman. Phenomenal strategies on Shalom Bayit, how to deal with in-laws, how to deal with emotionally unstable people, how to deal with people who don't listen, how to turn a complaint into a plus. I mean, all small chapters, but very, very, very strategy on his.
Gedale, quick question. The last book you mentioned, who's it by?
Seek Peace and Pursue It, David Lieberman. Lieberman.
Thank you.
David Lieberman. Say thank you and see miracles. As you see in my book, I've already said thank you for my son's cancer. I've already said thank you for all the things that have happened in my life. And we're going to see miracles after we say thank you. Why? Because life is happening for us, not to us. And Hashem is only doing things for our benefits. And when we get into a greater consciousness and we really believe that, we activate tremendous amount of mercy. So that wake-up call is no longer needed to wake you up. That wake-up call becomes the new vehicle where you get closer to Hashem. So when you say thank you and see miracles, he talks about 190 stories, how people said thank you before they were, people had thank for all kinds of tragedies. That every single case where they said thank you and they really believed it, not only did the situation go away, but it turned out 10 times better. And this book, why it's so important, this book, it's because it teaches you that you don't know anything. How do you like that? You don't know anything. And the more you know in life, the more you recognize you don't know anything. And we always look 2 years, a year from now, and says, wow, I can't believe, I went through that situation. If it wasn't for that situation, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for that situation, I wouldn't have got that. We always say that. People tell you, I'll laugh one day when this thing is over. basically start laughing and thanking right away. And this way you'll bring the situation to be over. And not only will it be over, but it'll turn out for the best. And where he takes this concept from, and he takes it from a Gemara, and I believe the Gemara in Brachot, and he takes it from lesson 5, that when whoever puts the heaven as a partner in his distress, as a partner in his issues, as a partner in his problems, they send him double. You get double the outcome, double the blessing on this. So it's almost like if you don't have the constriction, you can't get the double. So if you look at it that way, you should say, wow, I can't wait to put Hashem as a partner in constriction. And when you do that, not only do you not win, you win double. You win double what you expected. And I've seen this across the board. We have to put our Creator as a partner in our constriction. That means thank Him for our problems. Thank Him for what you think is a problem. Again, it's only our mindset that's telling us this is good, this is bad. Like I've told you guys a million times, we don't know anything. We know as much about things that people know about coronavirus, which is nothing. Again, say thank you and see miracles. Phenomenal, phenomenal book. Rabbi Kramer came out. Rabbi Kramer is my rabbi. He came out with this day by day by the daily dose of Rabbi Nachman. What this book does is it takes 9 to 10 books from Rabbi Nachman's teachings, and it basically gives you a portion for the day. There's 10 volumes. This book you have to buy it in Breslev.org. There's 10 volumes, but each day, for example, the 11th of Adar, the 15th of the 12th of Elul. I don't even know what day we're on today. But for that day, it'll give you 6, 7 chapters, which will take all 7 or 8 books of Reb Nachman, but it'll only give you a small portion for that day. And this is a new project that was created. It's called Day by Day, a daily dose of Reb Nachman. It's also a 5 to 10 minute read, and at least you're able to, like the daf. Why is the daf so? Learning Gemara every day because you're programmed to learn. Oh, I have to learn the daf. The same thing with this. You have like a schedule every day. Okay, I got to learn 10 minutes of this book, 15 minutes of the book. It keeps you very, very focused on that. This book can be bought in Breslev.org. And this was Rabbi Kramer. Think good, and it will be good. This is another great book. This book is by Rabbi Daniel Schombeck. What he did is he took Torah philosophy and he took Viktor Frankl's teachings. Viktor Frankl is known for logotherapy. Logotherapy means a therapy based on meaning. That means I can go through a traumatic situation. I can go through a situation that's difficult in my life. But if I don't attach meaning to it, then what happens is I can still get stuck there. But what the Torah does is it tells us that everything's happening for our benefits. Everything's happening for your benefits. So what happens is when you have something happen to you, you attach meaning. And this is what Viktor Frankl was all about. He spoke to us about how the way we interpret things, what things mean to us determines our feelings. So he takes a great concept between Viktor Frankl and he takes the Torah's concept and he really meshes it great. He's also a licensed therapist and he's a licensed mental health counselor. And he's really, it's all also a lot of strategy and a lot of things on how to, work to deal with anxiety, deal with depression. Again, this is Think Good and It Will Be Good. It's a combination of Lubavitch Rebbe's teachings, it's a combination of Viktor Frankl's teachings. Both phenomenal. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's by Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey's not Jewish, but his 7 habits are very, very Kabbalistically. I would say he probably got this from a Kabbalistic teaching. It really teaches you how to be proactive instead of reactive, play offense instead of play defense, which is the Gemara talks about. How we have to wake up like lions. It teaches you how to listen to be understood instead of listen to understand instead of to understood, which talks about the principle in Kabbalah called Hod. It talks about synergy, win-win. When we go in, we try to make peace with our wives. We're really winning you're winning with your wife and you're winning also with Hashem. So I did a few classes on this book, but it's all very strategic that you can really use for Judaism, etc. And I think how many is that so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have
19.
You have 19.
Yeah, you missed Garden
19
of
I said so far?
Yeah, you're missing Garden of Souls.
Garden of Souls is Rab Nachman's book on suffering, on how to attain healing through going into bittul. And that's it's a lesson 65 in Rab Nachman's teaching. So again, beautiful book. It's called Garden of Souls, and that is by Avraham Greenbaum. And another book on healing by Rabbi Greenbaum is The Wings of the Sun. The Wings of the Sun is a book that takes the Rambam's teachings, it takes Rab Nachman's teachings, and it meshes it together, and it talks all about healing. It has prayers in there, it has strategies in there, it has stories. One of my favorite books. I don't have it in my house because I have it in the office. It's called Wings of the Sun. And the last one, if you guys like the last couple of classes that I listened, the Spiritual Revolution of Rav Kook. Spiritual Revolution of Rav Kook, another phenomenal book that goes into Rav Kook's life, and it's very, very catered for today. Again, I must miss, maybe I missed some, but these are about 20 books that, again, guys, spend less time on the media, spend less time listening to garbage, and just take 20 minutes, a half an hour, open up a glass of wine and read a book. I'm telling you, it resets your mind, because what's going on out there with political and being, all these riots, it's just, you're going to lose your mind. Your body and your mind cannot handle so much stress. So those are the books. I'm open to take questions.
Yeah, Gedale,
if anybody has any questions.
One of the books you mentioned was Self-Esteem in the Talmud by Rabbi Yisrael Roll.
Yes, I forgot that one. Yes, thank you. See, this is why you get the big bucks, Ariel. Self-Esteem in the Talmud by Yisrael Roll gives amazing examples from the actual Gemara on how to build self-esteem. This is by Rabbi Yisrael Roll. Yisrael Roll has written many books, but my favorite one is Self-Esteem in the Talmud, which is the self-esteem book, but uses the Gemara, uses all Gemara sources, and he does a phenomenal job on that one.
Okay, first question is: do any of these books come in Audible?
I don't think so. I don't know. This I don't know. But it's funny, even if you get the Audible, you're going to be on your phone. You're not going to be, I find that it's not as effective, because, you start looking at your phone, you're listening, you're trying to multitask, next thing you know, you miss half the book. This is really about really like getting out and just sitting down and letting your mind relax. But I have no idea if they come in Audible. I have no idea.
Okay.
My classes come in Audible, that's for sure.
Okay. Someone just messaged that Letting Go does come on Audible. The book Letting Go does come on Audible. So someone asked, I have a hard time with prayer. What are some examples of prayer? Is it saying Shachrit and Mincha, or just doing Hitbodedut? What are some examples of prayer?
Both. It's both. One is the regular prayer we do with the Siddur, but the other one we're talking about in majority is his bodedut, is talking to Hashem. That's what we refer to in the classes. And if you want to go on YouTube, I have 5 or 6 classes on YouTube on his bodedut.
Okay, I'm not getting...
That's really his bodedut. His bodedut is really where you're going to get the majority of answers in your life. You're going to get the majority of the answers in your life in his bodedut.
Okay, I'm not getting much questions. I'm going to post the names of the books right now, but
okay, perfect.
we should also mention that a few of the authors of these books, we had a Zoom meeting. I should definitely look back and see how we had a discussion with them and how they told us how they got to write the book.
Great, perfect. Okay, good. So just add these other ones. But everybody, again, I strongly recommend, you're getting into Rosh Hashanah, go into Rosh Hashanah with a calm head. You don't go into Rosh Hashanah with all this garbage in your head. I mean, I stopped watching a lot of this stuff. It drove me absolutely crazy. And I just started reading more, and it really settled me. and it really helped me.
Do you also
Good.
want to talk about Tikkun HaKlali a little bit?
Yeah, Tikkun HaKlali is not so much a book, but it's the 10 Psalms of Reb Nachman. On Elul, specifically for men, it's a great remedy for spiritual blemishes revolving the Brit. So that you can actually post a class on that one. But Tikkun HaKlali is really the 10 Psalms that Reb Nachman wrote. God willing, I'm headed to Uman in 2-3 weeks. I'm very excited. It will be my first vacation of the year, believe it or not. It's not really a vacation, but I'm headed there. And this is one of the things that changed my life was actually fixing my Brit and getting married and being spiritually whole. So those are one of the things. Again, we have many classes on Tikkun HaKlali. Today's purpose, I just want to really talk about the 20 books.
Okay, so a question just came in. If we are supposed to accept something in our lives that we don't want, does that mean we should stop praying for something that we do want? Are we supposed to stop praying for something when we accept it? Question mark.
Very good. So the first thing is you have to align your will with God's will. That first is acceptance, because without acceptance, my prayers will be like self-pity. I won't pray with happiness. I won't pray with joy. It'll be like, oh, I can't believe I've got to deal with this issue. So what happens is, and your mind's not going to work if you don't accept. Acceptance is faith. Once I accept, then I can ask my Creator for the silver lining in that situation. I recommend for that person who's dealing with acceptance is say thank you and see miracles. Because it teaches you first you have to look at everything as one. That Hashem is one. That He's doing it for a reason. Once you realize that, then you invoke faith. Once you invoke faith, then you could start working on the solution. So acceptance is first. You know, so maybe Hashem, for example, maybe you're trying out to be a banker, but Hashem wants you to be an artist. So you're trying to push to be a banker, but you're not meant to be. Your soul is not meant to do that. You're meant to do something completely different. Or you think marrying this person is the right person for you, and all of a sudden it doesn't go through. You have to accept it, and then once you accept it, other doors are open. But you can't open. Other doors will not open until you close other ones.
Okay. What happens if you're not sure what you should be working on during Elul?
Well, the two main things to work on in Elul are the following. Humility is one. Because remember, Rosh Hashanah is about praising your Creator, crowning your Creator. And the second one for men is sexual blemishes. Those are the two main things Rav Nachman says that you should really, really work on. Humility is number one, and second is sexual transgressions. Those are the two things that we have extra favor in this month of Elul to rectify.
Okay.
He refers it to don't v'ishtok, being quiet and silent. That means, believe me, you're going to feel like you got a lot of embarrassment this month. You feel like there's a lot of extra things where you're forced to shut your mouth, and it's been very hard. And specifically this month, there's a lot of you have to just be quiet. Be quiet. Don't v'ishtok. Accept and recognize it's for the best.
So, how would that apply to women? You said that it's for sexual actions. How could that be applied to women?
Also, again, women can also have this issue. They have to understand they're going out with a specific guy. If they're going out with a guy they have no intentions of marrying, and they're just fooling around with this person, then they're not going to attract their soulmate. They're not going to attract the real person that they really need. Because what happens is when we get into these relationships with other people, after a relationship comes a lot of confusion, if you know what I mean. There's no good things that come after these ridiculous relationships. I remember being in these kind of relationships, and after these relationships, I walked out of there like I just got hit with a football field. It's just you get confused. You get negative energy, and you can't see clear. So what happens is when the right person comes to you, you don't have the right clarity. So it's very important that every time you are going into these relationships, you get negative energy from that person. It's not so simple that you just get into a relationship. Oh, I'm not with them anymore. There's a residual effect. of being with certain people. You should know that.
Okay. What is the difference between tefillah and formal prayer?
Well, one prayer is the prayer of Shacharit, Mincha, and Arvit. Those are the daily prayers that our sages wrote, and those are we say every single day, Amidah, and Shema, and all that. Those are based on in the Siddur, and this is what our sages wrote. But his Bodedut is really a conversation with you and Hashem. It's a conversation with you and your Father, talking about everything that's going on in your life. When I'm talking in Amidah, when I'm talking in Yishtabach, when a prayer during Siddur, I really can't express what I'm going through. I can't express the pain that I'm going through. So I really need that time to talk to my Creator and have that consolation and really, really speak from the heart. What happens is if we don't speak from the heart, we start getting cold. We start living a life of things become cold in our lives. We become cold. Our spirituality becomes cold, and then we don't feel like doing things anymore. So it's very, very important that you have to exercise your heart, and the best way to do that is to speak to your Creator. Prayer is a service of the heart, not of the lips.
Okay. This person asked the question. This person really struggles with the concept of being thankful when they're going through suffering, especially when a loved one is sick or this person is losing a son or a husband.
Right.
Is it true that is it true that this person has to become much closer to Hashem at this time, but sure that there's many other ways to, connect to Hashem and get closer to Him? Why is it that she's going through this rather than other ways?
Right. I recommend the book, The Garden of Souls, which talks about suffering and going into bittul. Because Hashem sometimes wants you to close your eyes to a much bigger picture. Again, and we are not our higher power. We don't understand His teaching. We don't understand the way He runs the world. But what the goal of my teachings are the following. They're not necessarily going to take away all your problems, but they're going to give you peace of mind. And through peace of mind, you will be successful in other areas of your life. You know what I mean? You need peace of mind, because if I'm busy battling 10 different battles at the same time, I'm not going to even want to wake up in the morning. And that's the danger. So the key is to have peace of mind. You have a boat, and you have different compartments in a boat. Okay, your son is sick. Put that in one department. But you don't let that all of a sudden become the catalyst to screw up your Shalom Bayit, to screw up you not doing classes anymore, to become a victim. You have to keep things you have to keep things in different compartments. People unfortunately do not know how to do that. So they take one thing, and the next thing you know, it just goes all over their life. It ruins this, it ruins this, it ruins this, it ruins this, it ruins this. And they start walking around like, in a constricted consciousness. And when you're in that mode, nothing gets accomplished. Not only do you not fix the problem, but everything else gets pretty much sunken in. And you know what? We could be talking about this, but obviously I'm going through something right now, as you guys could see. And you could see, thank God, I can pretty much handle my composure. And you guys also saw 2 years ago when I was in New York, and somebody in front of 900 people, somebody yelled at me in front of 900 people, and I didn't lose my composure. I'm not talking about me myself. I'm trying to explain to you that if you do the work and you start releasing every morning and you follow the classes, you will be a person that will be able to maintain composure during the toughest situations in life. And once you do that, then you build a vessel, and you can handle much more things in life. But if you get thrown off by one thing in life, then everything's going to throw off. And that's one of the things you guys need to understand, that we're here to we need to regain composure. We need to regain composure.
So you mentioned that it's easy to forgive people, but what happens if that person won't forgive, like the person that, what if that's not reciprocal?
Right. So that you can change. You can change. Obviously, you have to try to do it very calmly, and you have to apologize. this book is great on that. Seek peace and pursue it. It talks about how to get somebody to you have to. But the main thing is you shouldn't be offended by what somebody says something to you, because what people say to you is nothing about. It has really nothing to do with you. It really has to do with the way they feel about themselves. Because when they feel about themselves or they're stressed out, what do? You become the punching bag to other people's messes. But believe me, I witness it all day long. You just become the unloading. People just don't know how to control their feelings. Instead of talking to the Creator, what do? They just dump it on you. And this is why would you take something personal? The person doesn't know how to deal with his emotions and wants to dump it on you. It really has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the way he feels about himself.
So a person wants to know what's the best book to read right now before Rosh Hashanah, like a quick read.
Garden of Gratitude and Dvorah, I would say. Those two are a must. Because remember, on Rosh Hashanah we have to crown the king. So we're here to crown him. We have the right perspective of Rosh
Gedale, we can't hear you so well.
We can't hear you so well. 1 second, hold on. The whole purpose of Rosh Hashanah is to crown your Creator. Okay? But if you show up to Rosh Hashanah complaining, give me a better year, give me better this, give me a better that, without asking to become better yourself, or without having a real perspective, then you've missed the whole boat. So, Garden of Gratitude and Dvorah are phenomenal books right before Rosh Hashanah, because it teaches you how to be godlike, and it changes your perspective. You don't want to go to Rosh Hashanah with holding in grudges and having a very narrow perspective. I don't need to talk, but you could see what's happening. All of these people that are complaining about the United States and how terrible it is, are they fixing anything? They're getting justice for who? Who are they getting justice for? They can't even fix themselves. They can't even fix themselves, and yet they're claiming that the whole world is broken. And it's the biggest hypocrisy in the world. Imagine I can't even make my own room, and I'm saying that everybody else's house is dirty. Make your own room, then tell me that my house is dirty. But imagine having a sloppy room and telling the whole world your house is dirty. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But that's what happens when we lose perspective. We just project, and we don't even realize it.
Okay. How should a person approach OCD rather than just the therapies that are exist today? What other things could help treat OCD?
Right. He speaks a lot of that. What's his name? Daniel Schombeck. Look up Daniel Schombeck. Think good and it'll be good. And he talks. He's a therapist, and he gives like 2 or 3 classes on YouTube on OCD. Okay. I think also there's a couple books on OCD from Rabbi Tversky. A few books on religious obsessions. Thank God I don't really have those, so I can't really relate to it, unfortunately.
Okay, I don't see any more questions.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you guys. Have a great night. Bye bye.